Hello folks, welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. Well, let's get on with the Israeli-Palestine conflict. Now I mentioned the origins of most of the Jews in Israel. They're not Palestinian Jews, they're descendants of Khazarians from Khazaria. They are Khazars and therefore Talmudic Jews. Now what Talmudic Jews are, I've mentioned this in an old video, the New World Order Part 1. I also touched on it last time. I'll give you a few more details this time. Plus, now we keep hearing of all these lies which the Western media keeps peppering us with. There was Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, Assad in Syria, and a whole lot of others. They're all false flags. And it's about time the rest of the world caught on. We obviously haven't. Why does it happen? Well, the entire media, especially Western media, be it American, Western European, Middle Eastern, or, well, not the Middle Eastern maybe, but certainly the rest of those, are all Jewish owned. Now, whether it's the newspapers, the magazines, periodicals, television channels, news channels, all over the place, they're all Jewish owned. Even Hollywood is virtually Jewish run. Now the problem is not even the fact that they're Jewish. Had they been Sephardic Jews, as the old Palestinian Jews were, who followed the Torah, the present ones, 95% of them, came from US, UK and Western Europe. And they are Khazar Jews, which means Talmudic Jews. Let's be quite honest. Because all the things they've been doing for the last 60 or 70 years smacks of that. For instance, here's some of the things which their Talmud dictates, and they have to do it if they're Talmudic Jews. If a heathen, that is a Gentile, hits a Jew, he must be killed. This is Sanhedrin 58b. Now, a Jew need not pay a Gentile for wages for work done by him. You understand what I'm talking about? If a Jew finds an object lost by a Gentile, which is you and I, he need not return it, it becomes his. Now, when a Jew murders a Gentile, there will be no death penalty. When a Jew steals from a Gentile, it becomes his property, he needn't return it. The Gentiles are outside the protection of the law and God. Now you understand the meaning of that. Gentiles have no rights, no protection, nothing. Just like the Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank and southern Lebanon. They don't have any protection according to these Jews. Small wonder they've been getting away with murder. I'm talking about Israeli Jews. Now, Jews may use lies or subterfuge to circumvent Gentiles. You understand the Western press? All Jewish owned, therefore it's all right for them to tell lies. Which is what they've been doing for 100 years or more, at least. Think about that. This is part of their religion. Now, all Gentile children are animals. Your children and our children are animals. This is what, according to Yevamos 98.8. All Gentile girls are in a state of nida, or filth, from birth. Now, here's one or two which will really make your hair curl. Christians and others who reject the Talmud will go to hell and be punished there for all generations. those who read the New Testament or Christian books will have no portion of the world to come. Now, this one you should listen to carefully. This is Sanhedrin 54b and 54 and 55b. It is no sin to have intercourse with a 3-year-old girl, specifically 3 years old and 1 month, provided the child is less than 9 years old. Perhaps because they're too weak to resist the rapist. Now there are 613 such commandments. You understand the bestiality with which Palestinians have been treated. And when the Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, says or accuses Israel, and he is told to resign by the Israeli representative, maybe we should listen to the General Secretary rather than the Israeli. Now we come to a very, very strange point, which most people, well, I don't think anybody has mentioned this. Ariel Sharon and everybody else and Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime ministers of Israel, have said the UN partitioned Palestine into Jews and Palestinians. The Arabs rejected it, but we accepted it. Very strange way your acceptance has taken, very strange path. Why? According to that, UN gave the Jews 60% of Palestine, which in itself was a travesty of justice, because at the time there were only about 800,000 or 900,000 Jews. But there were about 3 or 4 million Palestinians. So why did they give the 60% to Jews and only 40% of their own land to Palestinians? How could they accept such a deal? But the Jews, that means you folk, including Mr. Netanyahu, you accepted it. That means 60% UN gave you, and you accept gratefully. So why are you sitting on 95 or 98% of Palestine? When are you going to return that, or are you going by the Talmudic tenet that you don't have to give it back? Who said so? UN doesn't go by the Talmud. Sorry. Get out first before you ask for any world sympathy. Get out of that 38% and give it back to Palestinians. Now the UN Secretary General talks about inhumanity to Palestinians. Well, let's see what you do. Since 1948, you've gone into areas, cleaned out all Palestinians, removed them from there, broken up their villages and houses into dust, and put up Israeli settlements there. Isn't that inhumanity? You've gone into towns. Arabs who live there, literally been turfed out of their homes, thrown out, and those homes given to Jewish settlers. Inhumanity? And you say, you are the ones who are being persecuted? You are the ones whose security is under threat? Come on. Let's get real, huh? And this has been happening in Hebron, in Ramallah, in Jenin, as well as in Jerusalem. I'm not sure how many there were in Haifa or Tel Aviv or some places like that. But certainly in Jerusalem, Ramallah and what's the other, Hebron, this has happened. Now you claim you want peace. It's funny. There's only one Israeli Prime Minister who not only wanted peace, he was 2/3 of the way there. But he made the cardinal sin. He committed the cardinal sin. He was going to give back land in exchange for peace and security. Yitzhak Rabin. And you had him assassinated. And since then, what did Sharon do? He put on his dirtiest hobnail boots and wandered up and down the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the third holiest shrine in Islam. Did you expect him to take that lying down? The Intifada. That was a protest. But you call it as a threat, which you provoked. Again, you provoked it this time. You sent your soldiers into the Al-Aqsa Mosque and started cleaning out and beating up women with their boots on. I mean, that, as far as Muslims are concerned, is virtually sacrilege. You don't do that. Okay, now we go to Gaza. You vacated Gaza after occupying it from 1967. You vacated there in 2005. How many times have you bombed Gaza aerially and artillery pieces from the ground since 2005? We know at least, for instance, 2014, 2016, 2017, 18, 21. And you've attacked them. There's almost rubble. People live in rubble. And you say, oh no, you've been very good to them. You've made laws to ensure that Palestinians, once they're driven out somewhere, can't come back, because you say that land is now Israeli government land. And yet you, whose ancestors never had a toenail in Palestine, are permitted and must have the right to return there. Look, to return somewhere, some of your ancestors or you must have been there in the first place. When? I mean, again, so many lies have been told. One begins to wonder, do you know what the truth is? Even among yourselves. And you claim, oh, Hitler did this to all our Jewish friends. What did you do to Hitler in Germany? Have you forgotten? You declared war. The world Jewry, the world of Jews declared war on Hitler in 1933. You declared a blockade of Germany. And you could do it because there was no air transport. All your goods usually had to go by sea. One family controlled German shipping from Hamburg, the Warburgs, your own Jewish community. Germany starved because 60 to 65% of their food had to be imported. The only way to pay it is exports, which again had to go by sea. You couldn't get any German goods anywhere in the US and much of Europe, thanks to your blockade. You expected them to love you for that? Plus the fact, Germany had allowed Jews in and they prospered there as nowhere else. And you keep sticking knives in their back? Is this what a friend does? Now, I know people will look at me and look down on me and say, oh, you're with terrorists. What is Hamas? Does it really exist? Or is it the same creation in your parlance as George Bush and Al-Qaeda? Why did George Bush create Al-Qaeda or Al-Qaeda? He needed an organization with a head. Osama bin Laden. Why? Here's a criminal organization with a head. Therefore, Congress would allow funds to hunt out terrorists. In the same way, you create a Hamas and put an Arab head on it and then call them terrorists. Why? Now you can justify murdering and slaughtering Palestinian women and children in Gaza. Ah, they're terrorists. With the entire area blockaded by land and sea and air, How did Hamas get these rockets into Gaza? You claim 5,000 in one night? Rockets I'm talking about? 5,000? You have any idea what that means? Or is this another one of those big fat lies? Well, the world is getting a little fed up with your lies, Israel. Try dealing in the truth. It would help your own cause. You would be more acceptable to the whole world as people rather than as liars whom nobody trusts. We would like to trust you, but can we? What's to stop you from doing the same thing to us in the future? Now, who benefits from this entire thing? Two major powers benefit greatly. Who? China. How does China sort of benefit? Well, the Indo-India-European link gets broken because it had to pass through Israel and Palestine, whichever. Remember that. Once that goes, China's BRI, in which they've invested heavily, begins to gain prominence. And the other is the USA. The military-industrial complex is busy supplying weapons already to Ukraine and Western Europe, and now to Israel on a massive scale. The military-industrial complex in the US is laughing all the way to the bank. Their shares have gone up 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times in the last week or 10 days. Now we come back to something else. You keep talking about hostages. Where did they learn it from? From you, Israel, from you. How? Let's see. 1967, before that war started. Remember, just before June 1967, all your generals had a big meeting, collected all the intelligence reports they could, and found this, that the Arabs had no thought of any war on Israel or any invasion of Israel. They had no such idea, no thought, nothing. Your intelligence reports also showed that it would be at least 2 years before the Arabs could gear up for a war. They needed that much time. So now the atmosphere changed. It was no longer an imminent threat, but an opportunity. For what? To grab a lot of land as bargaining chips. And since then you have held most, if not all of Palestine in your hands. Palestinians have been driven out, they're into Gaza, you moved into Jordan. Now Jordan gave the West Bank to Palestine for their state. It is occupied basically by Palestinians. But in the last 10 or 15 years, Mr. Netanyahu, you have been setting up more and more settlements, Israeli Jewish settlements in that place, throwing out Palestinians, breaking down their settlements and replacing them with Israeli settlements against all international laws. Again, more salami slicing or conquest by salami slicing. And those Palestinians either have to go into Jordan as refugees or southern Lebanon as refugees. How many women and children have you Israelis killed and murdered and slaughtered since 1948? You started that thing by shooting 250-odd young menfolk of the Palestinians against the wall. You killed another 200 women and children and babes with bayonets. Also in the West Bank, every year at least somewhere between 180 and 220 or 225 Palestinians are either shot, beaten to death, or just choked or killed anyway. Every year this happens even now. The others are terrorized. And you talk about Hamas? Does Hamas actually exist? You tell civilians to get out and go to the southern Gaza. How? They have no food, they have no water, they're hungry and thirsty. They don't even have tents. They don't have fuel to catch buses to go there. So they're supposed to walk with sick people and wounded people? Because you keep bombing them every night? Come on, man, get real. And then you say, oh, we're giving civilians every chance to get out. They can't get out by sea because you keep a naval bombardment going. You keep an aerial bombardment going. You have tanks in front to frighten them and terrorize them even more. And you call them terrorists? Come on, man. And you, Mr. Biden, keep siding with them? And you, Mr. Macron? And you, Mr. Sunak? Come on. And you, Britain, are the last people who should be doing, because you're the cause of their being there. Thanks to Lord Balfour and the British government of the time. Try and understand all this. So please, let's get real, get Israel to behave. Get out of, say, 40% of Palestine. UN has slipped up, yes. They partitioned Palestine, but never made that particular partition clear. Where is Israel? Where is Palestine? Do it now. Disarm both sides. Let UN patrol the place and keep the peace. That's what it is meant for. Let's do it. And as for Israel, stay within your borders. And Palestine, keep out of Israel or Israeli territory. Yes, I know it's unfair, but it's the best we can do. I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you, folks, because these are the things which I've not come across anywhere. Nobody has come out with these things. Why? The UN Secretary General began, and this Israeli man tells him to resign. Why? Doesn't he like the truth? Or does he go by these Talmudic orders or instruction or commandments? I'm sorry, the rest of the world doesn't. It's about time all of us, including Israelis, began to understand something called humanity. We need a very strong dose of that all over the world. Thank you, folks. Go through this one and listen to every word I've said, because there's meaning in everything, in all of this. Please like, subscribe, pass it on to your friends, ask them to pass it on to their friends and relatives and so on, groups. Thank you, folks, and I'll see you next time.